So we shot a video a couple of weeks ago and saw somebody commented that they'd really like to see how a jig was made to hang 2x4s for a privacy fence. So today we're going to walk through that process and show you how we make one. We have a few different types of jigs here on the table. These are the metal jigs that we're going to be running through how to make today. You will probably oftentimes see these. These are just kind of made on the job, and depending upon the job, the height of the job, you can just kind of throw these together with leftover 2x4 pieces. This particular one we're making today is going to be for 6-foot fence. We do our fences with a 6-inch reveal on top and 6 inches of pickets sticking below the bottom 2x4. So really, when you're making a jig, you just want to account for the spacing that you want to use and do the math to get your middle one in the middle and your top and bottom where they need to be. Here's our metal jig, and here's our picket, and we have our 3 rails. So as you can see, I have it lined out. Basically what you want to do is figure out how much of your picket you want hanging over the top, and for us it's about 6 inches. You want to put the middle runner typically right smack dab in the middle of the picket, and then the bottom we do roughly 6 inches as well. We've seen other fences that are done differently, but for us, I think that works good. As you can tell here, the jig lines up pretty well with the 2x4s. And like I was saying before, you basically just kind of do the math to figure out exactly where you need them. We make our jigs out of 1.5-inch square tube. You don't have to make them out of that. Pretty much anything you got laying around would be fine. The wood that we showed earlier or round rail, you could even do it out of that. But we'll be doing ours out of 1.5-inch square tube today. When we're looking at the math here to make the jig for the runners, we're looking at having 6 inches above the top of the 2x4. So if this is the 2x4, you'd want 6 inches over here. And then the same with the bottom, 2x4 here and 6 inches below. And then the middle stud would be just square in the middle to have the 2x4 resting. So the jig will actually fit something like this right underneath of the 2x4s. That way when you go to hang it, you can put the 2x4s right on top of the jig. If you want to see the jig in action, click there. So before shooting this today, I was talking with Scott, our wood foreman, and we were discussing the top part of this jig and how important it is. I've only had to use these jigs a couple of times. He uses them pretty much every day. The top of the jig needs to be pretty much about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch wider than the 2x4. If there's too much slop, you'll have the jigs kind of swaying back and forth a little too much. Sometimes if they're too tight, they're really hard to get on and off. So that's about where you want to be. So I'm going to start with this top piece here, and I want the top piece to be hanging on the top of the 2x4. And you can do that 2 different ways. You can mark out where you'd like it and mark the metal, or you can put a picket on the table next to it and have your 2x4s or runners lined up to where you'd like it to be. The next piece we put on will be the top hook, and this is what the jig will hang on, the top 2x4. Before you weld it on there or create it, you want to make sure that you have just enough space here, and it looks like our spacing is about right. So we'll go ahead and put that on now. So now that I've got these tacked in place, I'm just double checking myself to make sure that we got the right amount of spacing. We're at about 2¼ inch. That'll allow a little bit of wiggle room for that top 2x4. Now the next 2 pieces are going to be sitting on top of the square tube. So we'll be finding out where that needs to be and then welding the stud just on the underside of the 2x4. There you have it. You got 1 jig done. Now you're going to need to make another one just like it, the exact same way, and that way when you go to hang these up, you've got 1 to start your 2x4 and one at the other end of the post to catch the end of the 2x4. We have the jig finished up here. The last and final step, and also the most crucial step in this process, when you're done, hit it with some orange paint.